All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. And we are trying to catch up with Jacob as he is flying through the United States, getting to a secure location pretty soon. So he might be joining us a little bit later today. We hope so. And but we do have David Lister down in Tennessee. David, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. It gets tough to fill Jacob's shoes week after week, but
Was he wear a size 14 or something like that?
yeah, something like that. And man, I'm like a 10.
Well, welcome, David. Thank you so much. And
Uh,
we'll definitely catch up with Jacob. Actually, you've seen him just recently. So
yeah,
you had him at the Hanukkah and Christmas party. So
yeah.
that would be great. Down in Australia, Davy, Saturday morning. You're getting closer to the new year now, Davy. So you'll be ahead of us. How are you today?
I can't believe it's Saturday and Christmas is coming and gone. We're into Hanukkah and the new year. I'm actually scared to count up the number of days. It's kind of like this one's just evaporated again.
Yeah, you know what? I was with a family member this week, and we traveled to see them. And it was sort of a surreal, but she was absolutely right. She's like, the last 4 years has just been like so fast. Hardly remember. He says, "What happened in 2021?" And I said, I know it happened, but there's so many things that were going on. We kind of forgot all the things that really went on. So it was sort of like a forgotten year. It was 2021 that really did happen, but people forgot about it because it's going so fast. So I know what you're saying. Yeah, welcome, Davey. And down the 210 to the 101, somewhere in that area. Jay, how are you?
I'm good. It's mostly cloudy. Unfortunately, it's not a sunny day in California. It's 59 degrees, but I hear the rest of the United States is freezing with snow. It's
I don't,
only
I don't-
59 here.
oh, I
Count
know.
your blessings, right?
We're so
That's right.
well, somebody's got to suffer for the Lord, Jay. And we are the ones counted to that suffering. But I talked to a friend of mine, and they're under snow up on the East Coast. So there you have it. It's a bit different. So I like the snow. I guess maybe not too much,
I
but
like to look at it on television. It's
yeah.
wonderful.
Love watching it on television. That's
Yeah.
about it.
That's it. Amen. Well, we want to welcome those who are watching live. Welcome in the name of the Lord. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, coming New Year, and catching up with Jacob, episode day 215,
214.
Hey,
214. Getting ahead of myself. The last one for the years. We've been with you for 52 episodes this year, 52 episodes this year, and we're at the last one because next time will be January 2025. So, just a couple of announcements. David, you want to start with some announcements for Jacob?
yeah, Jacob asked for prayer because he's going into a very busy time, not publicly, but he's working on his book. He's working on the new film. Going to be working with Jay in just a few days, and so doing some stuff, getting that laid down, and so he surprised me when he said, "I got these two projects, but I've already got another book in my head." So please pray for him. And he's got a little bit of traveling, but then when he comes back to America, hopefully he can do full time with Jay and get this movie out. So
Praise the Lord. And busy, busy, busy. Not only the public teaching, but also the internal, the books, the film, and some of the things that are going behind the
plus
scenes.
he's struggling with private things of loss and stuff of friends and stuff we'll talk about later.
Yeah, absolutely. So, want to make sure you guys keep Jacob in prayer for sure. And we want to remind you of our podcast and our YouTube channels. So, Jay, you want to handle that? We want to remind everyone and keep reminding them podcasts and other platforms and YouTube channels, especially Memorial Chapel.
Absolutely. You can catch us on Apple. You can catch us on Spotify and Buzzsprouts and Deezer. Podcast Addict. Once again, the great advantage that you have with podcasts is that you can download lessons. You can download even shows like this, Catching Up with Jacob or Ken's Corner, and you can listen to them when you don't have access to the internet. They'll be locally available for you, just like a thumb drive. If you wanted to get one of those, which are always awesome to get. Also, I want to always let everybody know We are almost to the end of the book of John, and once that ends, if you want to catch Bible studies, you're going to have to go to Memorial Chapel. That's where they're going to be located from now on. That's where it's going to be streamed from now on. So please make yourself ready. Subscribe now. Get over to Memorial Chapel on YouTube. And finally, I've said this, I'm going to say it again. If you're having trouble with the many advertisements that happen, whether on YouTube or on Rumble, because both of them are now heavily adding ads aggressively, the one place you can catch all of our content ad free is X. And everything is posted to X so you can watch without having any interruptions until they decide to go, add
Ad revenue comes
ad
in.
revenue.
Elon needs more money.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But so we are, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, we are obviously on YouTube and Facebook. We are on Rumble, which you can ask the questions on Backstage. We'll ask those questions today. We're hoping Jacob is back for those questions, but otherwise we will take them just like last week. And we did fantastic on those questions. We thank you so much for sending them. And we thank David and Jay and Davey for answering them. So we're also on Telegram, which has been gaming. We're also on X, as Jay was talking about. We're also on Vimeo, which is predominantly going to be used more and more as we grow. We're also Jay, am I missing one? Facebook Live. We got
Yeah,
that.
Facebook, and then also we are also, you already mentioned all of them. You're good.
Yeah. Okay.
X.
Okay.
No.
X. Yeah. And then we got an incoming website for Memorial.tv is coming. I think Jay, am I wrong? Maybe the timeline, but is it January? Some point at the end of January would be available.
God
Yeah.
willing.
By the end of January, we should have Memorial TV rolling out, redone, completely reorganized, and should be pretty fantastic.
Yeah, we're so happy. We're so happy. And we thank the Lord so much for your prayers. And of course to the Lord for giving us the opportunity to have a website that could be a benefit to the body of Christ and have them organized well and memorial.org is coming along really well as well. So much to say and much prayers
Yeah.
for them. Davey, people have been asking about the thumb drive and also about the a new Bible study that came out at Damascus Fall that we did at a home Bible study. Where can they find that? And then also the thumb drive.
Yep. Well, yeah, the thumb drives, yeah, just email me at Davy, Davy, Rosengreen, ROSENGREEN at gmail.com. Be sure to include your include your mailing address, name and mailing address, and we'll get one shipped out to you and that. And uh, yeah, I've been really pleased with the number of orders coming in. Anyone who had ordered one up to Christmas would have been sent I haven't been very good with my emails the last few days, so I will get to the emails that have just come in the last few days. Also, yeah, there's Marco did an excellent home Bible study last Saturday. Yeah, last
Yeah,
Saturday. A week
yeah,
already. Boy,
yeah.
the time goes quick. It is currently up on Devore Truth YouTube channel and Devore Truth Rumble. I believe it's now up on Twitter, and it'll also be going up on Moriel Chapel. So yeah, check out the study. It's a great teaching and a good update of what's happening in Syria at present.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we haven't done a lot of prophecy updates that we used to do at our church, and people have asked me for it, and it was kind of interesting because people enjoyed it, and I never thought that people enjoyed it because sometimes you don't get to meet people and talk to them. We just did it, and but we focused more on the Bible studies this past year. But I did say that we're going to do more of that, so this was sort of the beginning of that. So hopefully that helped because of all the confusion what's going on in Syria. I think it was appropriate, and I thank our brother Steve for hosting us and Jay for recording it, and we should be good to go. All right.
I'm
So,
also, I would just like to say I've never seen my dad so fascinated by a topic. When it comes to the Bible, he was enthralled
you
to
enjoyed
by
it.
your teaching. Yeah, he was
Even
so
more.
excited to go look in the Bible, read it, and then also try to put those puzzle pieces together. So yeah, if you have a chance, please check out that teaching. It was really, really good.
Is that
I,
what you're actually supposed to do? Listen, read, study? And he's what, 80 something?
He's 87, about to be 88.
Man, talk about a guy getting excited. Oh, look, Jacob's coming on.
Well,
Wow.
welcome Jacob in. So, and also, so we got the thumb drive, we got the podcast, we got the YouTube channel, and Jacob's here. Jacob, welcome in the name of the Lord. We're about
Thank
to
you.
get
Just
on with
about,
the
just
topic.
about.
We're recording now, so we're live now. Jacob, welcome in the name of the Lord.
Thank you so much. Glad I could make it finally.
You're in our home state, Texas. Jay and I going back to going back to our
Well,
Texas days.
I like San Antonio, but I don't like Dallas Airport. I thought it was
Well, who likes airports, right? It's
Nobody
not.
likes Dallas either.
Especially at the worst time of the year to travel,
Oh
Christmas.
yeah, yeah, perfect time, right? Perfect time and
Yeah.
perfect airport. And
But you went down there because of uh, a friend that really needs prayer, Jacob, right?
virtually a stepsister and not the closest thing she has to family. So yes, but it's just been a terrible day. And on top of, I was already consumed with Dave Royal's situation and Beryl's son and all these things. And the travel today was just absolutely nightmarish. Never
Yeah.
fly American Airlines. That's my best advice to anybody. Avoid American. United's
Yeah.
not that much better, but they're not as bad as American.
They're all bad, Jacob, and Christmas.
Delta's a lesser of evils.
Yeah.
well, I'm familiar with Dallas Airport. I'm familiar with American Airlines, and I don't envy you, Jacob, at all whatsoever. So,
I mean, they play at Dallas Airport. Um, they play airport bingo. They change your flight
I
gates
think
all
it's
the
like
time. I had four last time I went through there. I had four gate changes.
I think they like to do that there. I think
Well,
they
they
just
have
They
to
changed the
because
gate and didn't announce it. They changed the gate and didn't announce it.
well,
well,
welcome to Dallas. Yeah,
I
Dallas.
was told by people there in Dallas that you're to always check on your gate. Check it all the way up to 1/2 hour before you leave
Oh yeah, yeah. Hey.
because they have these constant gates changed because they have so many going in, they get delayed and for another time.
Yeah, let's do it. And I wanted to ask you before we start, I want to ask David and to talk a little bit about Dave Royal, a dear brother in the Lord, Memorial board member for years, went to be with the Lord this week. And we just want to do just a little bit of remembering him and what the Lord did through him, especially within Moriel. And if you have any sentiments for that, David and Jacob, if you're able to do it, just to remember Dave and what the Lord did through him and his life. Doesn't have to be long, but just people that don't know. There's a lot of new Memorial people that don't know too much about Dave Royal. I remember Dave going back to the early 2000s. So, David, we'll go to you, and then Jacob,
Okay.
if you can.
Yeah. What I remember about Dave Royal is he was such a nice man to me, so much fun to be around. But he was very serious about the Lord and about missions. And he introduced me to South Africa. Quite the experience. Said, "Look in your shoes before you put them on in the morning." And I found out one day when there was a spider come out about that wide, so I understood. But he took me on great adventures. We talked at night about the Lord and about His work, and he we I remember holding AIDS infected kids, letting them fall asleep on my body for their warmth, and just have tubes coming out of their heads, and we would have to wear like nuclear radar suits to not get some of the body fluids on us when we change kids. That was horrible, but the loving of the kids and the love that David and Lynn, his wife, had for the kids was just such an inspiration of what mission is really about and giving yourself over to such a cause and to the Lord to serve Him through helping these young ones. And so I remember having Dave in my house and his sons, and just I miss him already. We knew he was getting older and facing health problems and stuff, but he's with the Lord.
Amen. Remembering Dave Royal. Jacob, anything you would like to add? I know it's a difficult time and difficult thing, and I understand if you don't want to. Just any thoughts on Dave Royal for people that didn't know much about him since he's been retired for some time and health issues, but he was a vital part of Moriel.
He was still a trustee, even in his semi-retirement, of Moriel in the UK. Dave Royal was by profession a microbiologist who then got a theological education at Cliffs College before it went off doctrinally. It was still a conservative evangelical institution when he studied there. But he was a microbiologist and he worked for the American conglomerate, or the British division of the American conglomerate, Procter and Gamble, I believe. And he was a lay pastor and later ordained pastor of a church in Manchester, England, where my grandfather was from and where I lived at one time. And he pastored this church, which was affiliated to Moriel. It was one of the first Moriel affiliated fellowships in the UK when Moriel began, because we had moderate Pentecostals and moderate charismatics who didn't want to go with obviously the counterfeit revivals from Toronto and things like that. And they didn't want to go with the influx of the word faith money preachers that were coming into Britain when Christian TV began. They were coming in from America and South Africa. And so Dave, being like ourselves, somebody who was not a cessationist, but on the other hand, not a lunatic, hyper charismatic lunatic, we were natural bedfellows, and we became friends at that time. He just pastored this church that was the Moriel affiliate. But then the Lord called him to the mission field, gave up his job, took his family, went to South Africa at the invitation of some church that agreed to help sponsor his work among AIDS orphans. But I was invited down there to speak, and I did. And Dave told me to speak about some of the things that were going on in South Africa that were doctrinally aberrational, and I did. To make a long story short, the pastor compromised, fired Dave that night. Dave and his family were out without any base of support, and that was the beginning of Moriel missions. Dave pioneered Ebion, which was Moriel's first mission, children's mission to AIDS children in Africa, actually babies at that time. And he co-founded Moriel Missions. All of our later works that we had in the Philippines and India and so forth, and Thailand, were preceded by the work that Dave and his wife Lynn and their family pioneered in Africa. Now, at that time, it was very different than it became. AIDS, pediatric AIDS, even HIV was a death sentence. They would take care of these kids. And right from the beginning, it was not an institutional environment. It was a family type environment with a lot of emphasis, first of all, on the Lord and on the faith, and secondly, and on prayer, and a lot of emphasis on things like nutrition and hygiene. Our children tended to live longer and survive longer, or babies, I should say, than most AIDS children in Africa did, I believe, for those reasons. Certainly, prayer being at the center of it, but also the way it was run as a family and emphasizing nutrition and things like that, and hygiene and so forth. But in time, antiretrovirals were invented, and our children became teenagers, and they didn't die. In the early years, what Dave and Lynn would do was get these babies, and as they got to be 3, 4, 5 years old, just basically tell them, you're going to go be with Jesus soon. You're going to go be with Jesus soon. You're going to go be with Jesus soon. And introduce these children at a young age as possible to the Jesus they were soon going to be with, barring divine intervention. And he buried babies. It was not an easy job to have to get those kids and take care of them, knowing that they're going to be dead in a few years. And you got to inculcate them with the faith in Jesus and just prepare them to go be with Jesus as little kids. It was very, very difficult. Not many people would have the spiritual or emotional stamina to do what he and his wife did. And remember, South Africa, these were in the townships, the rough South Africa, half step above the third world, and some of it was third world. to go from living in Manchester, England, working for a multinational corporation as a microbiologist, to go down and living in those conditions to take care of these kids, but he did it. It's what the Lord told him to do, and he did it faithfully with his wife. They had a nickname from some believers in England. My wife called them not the royal family, Royle, but she called them in God's sight the royal family, Royal. She went down there once with me to visit Ebiona to see the work. I could tell you story upon story, but unfortunately, although Dave and myself went to Uganda together, we went mission trips with David Lister and things. We were in Kenya and Tanzania and all kinds of things I could tell you about. He was plagued with genetic type 1 diabetes in the family that almost killed his son. His son Aaron had to have an organ transplant as a young guy, a young father with a young baby and a young wife. But Dave battled this type 1 diabetes that was in the family, and it took its toll. And he couldn't see anymore. That diabetes affected his vision. It obviously affected his feet and the neuropathy and so forth. He couldn't drive, which was essential to be able to drive the Jeeps, the buckies, as we call them in South Africa. He had to come back for medical reasons to Great Britain. He had to come back from the mission field. Now, he stayed as active as he could. He was still on a trustee of Moriel and so forth. But things changed. The other thing that changed was when antiretrovirals were invented, the children who normally would have had died previously were now living and becoming teenagers. We never planned for that in the early days. We planned basically to prepare them to go be with the Lord and then to be perfectly blunt and crude about it, bury them. The kids began to survive with the ARVs. So the ministry became a victim of its own success and it had to be reinvented. So he began a children's village. Unfortunately, he could not stay there because of the type 1 diabetes. He came back to Britain. But that is Dave Royle in a nutshell. His wife, Lynn, a self-giving woman and a helpmeet to her husband, if there ever was one. Loved these kids. Remember, Dave and Lynn were the only parents these AIDS babies ever had. Their own parents were dead of AIDS in most cases. The only father they ever knew this side of Kingdom Come was Dave. He was a father to these little Black African babies. And that was Moriel's first mission with Black African AIDS babies that were going to die initially.
And we didn't know what we were really doing, to be honest, Jay.
It was
loved them, and that was kind of it.
Yeah.
You know?
We were talking about how we're going to fund the expansion. Elton John ran a charity to fund AIDS projects in Africa and things like this. But Dave, I lived at one time in the same town Elton John was from. And Dave would not accept any money from Elton John to apply. He wouldn't even apply to Elton John's charity.
He was offered by Elton John money.
Because of the homosexuality. He wouldn't go with it. He just trusted the Lord for it. But we've been through some things together in Tanzania with the school, and you may have heard the story.
Yeah.
You know, he just was what he was and did what he did, and the diabetes was very cool to that family. The type 1 diabetes, the genetic diabetes is very cool to that family. And fortunately, the transplant worked for his son, Aaron, but Dave lost his battle with it. The Lord called him home. Now, this was going to be devastating, obviously, to his wife and to his 3 sons, Anthony, Chris, and Aaron. But also
Lynn's the wife. Lynn is the wife.
Lynn is the wife. And also to the children, now teenagers, at the Ebiona Children's Village in Africa. So this is the situation. Now, what compounded it was a few weeks ago, his father went to be with the Lord, like 2.5 weeks ago. His father's funeral has not even taken place yet. His father's not even been buried yet. And Dave gave up the ghost. Well, Dave is now with the Lord, and he's reunited with his father, who thankfully was a saved Christian, and he is with those little babies who he took care of and prepared to
Yeah.
go to Jesus
Amen.
when they were dying of AIDS. That's where he is. His gain, however, is our loss. And it's a particular loss for his family, his wife Lynn, sons, and for the children in Ebion in Africa. And it's a loss for all of us. It really is. I got hit with a double whammy. A longtime member of Moriel, who had been with Moriel longer than Dave Royal, and he's been around almost from the beginning,
Yeah.
is Beryl Hunter, Peter and Beryl Hunter. Beryl is the booking secretary for England. She books my itineraries, and she also organizes the Moriel conferences in the UK, and she does certain projects with Moriel in Israel. Um, Boxing Day, which is the second day of Christmas. In England, the 26th of December is like part of Christmas. It's the second day of Christmas, let's call it. It's not like here. It's in America, it's a holiday in Britain and in Commonwealth countries like Australia, New Zealand, to a degree, Canada even. But her son, who lives in Scotland, was to come down to her and Peter, her husband, for Christmas and didn't come. They didn't know what was going on. Well, they found him not alive in his bed. And
Today too. Yeah.
I got that email less than an hour after I got the email about Dave Royal.
Yeah.
It came less than within an hour of each other, less than an hour. It's been a very, very difficult couple of days. I must say, not to bring anyone's holiday spirit down, but this has been one of the most difficult nativity slash Hanukkah seasons in my life and my recollection or reckoning. I've never had such a thing happen quite this way or to this degree at the Hanukkah nativity season. And of course, I know for Dave's family and for Peter and Beryl, this time of year will never be a happy one for them. Again,
Yeah.
now obviously for myself, I only celebrate the nativity, not Christmas and such. And I look at Hanukkah theologically and things like that. But it is a family time. It is still a family time. And it's not going to be a happy family time any time in the future until Jesus comes for Peter and Beryl or for Lynn and for Chris and Anthony and Aaron. And that's just the
And
way it is.
Chris.
Yeah, and
They're
Chris.
all believers and there will be a reunion, and that's the joy that's coming.
We have a blessed hope.
Yeah.
The Lord lets these things happen for a reason. It makes us trust in Him and His kingdom and in His coming. But it's still difficult, both spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah.
So I would really ask all of our viewers to please pray for Dave's family, for Lynn and their sons, and for the children in Africa. And I'd also ask prayer for Beryl and Peter
Yeah.
Hunter this particular time. It's just very, very difficult for all of us at Moriel, but particularly for the families involved. That's all I
Yeah.
can say.
You and I have so many great memories of Dave. He loved adventure and took us on adventures. I remember coming over the top of a hill and there's three rhinoceros in front of me in a car that's maybe like a Volkswagen Bug. And he looks at me and says, "What do we do?" I said, "You're from here. I thought you knew." He said, "Oh, you didn't read the pamphlet." And I said, "Let's just back up." But he got us in all sorts he was just a good man to be around, and he was fun, and he was a good dad. I saw how he loved his kids and all these things, and he had a great family, and they were just one. And so I know it's bad about that, but I wanted everyone to know he was a good family man, and he was a good man, and he loved the Lord.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jacob. And I know difficult it is to talk about that. So please keep the royal family in prayer. Please
Yes.
keep Beryl and Peter in prayer. This is why we are believers together in unity. We pray for one another. We keep each other in prayer and we encourage one another as we can. And I remember Dave, I met Dave. And so early on in the Moriel years, he came to the States and he came to stay with me. So we had some time together, got to know him a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit. We stayed in touch mainly online until he got really sick and he couldn't really do much online anymore. But he stayed, as Jacob said, as a trustee within the Moriel UK and Moral England. So it was really, really an awesome time with Dave. And it is sad. It is sad. But I remember him and talking about missions and speaking at the church and talking about other things that he would love to do and teach and preach. And he was very good and instrumental at my first coming to and being
Yes.
with Moriel. And it was a great blessing to have him in our home. And my wife remembers him. And when I told her today about it, she remembered this one conversation because we had Dave over, and you guys can relate to this. And my wife fixed up a nice dinner. We got some vegetables, and we had other things and salads. And Dave goes, "That's rabbit food. Give me a steak." I don't eat rabbit's food. And if you know Dave, he loved to eat meat, protein. So he kept himself, busy with that, and didn't like to eat a lot of other stuff besides meat. So praise the Lord for him, and he's with the Lord now.
Yep.
And glory, and I would have to say the comfort to Lynn and to her family and her sons, and that's obviously something that is difficult to deal with. But he's doing better than us. He's
Yeah.
doing than us today, and some of the stuff we're going to talk about today makes you wonder. Like Dave, you you won, you won.
Yeah.
Of all the things that are
Wow.
going on,
He
you
finished
won.
the race.
He did. He did it. He did it fine, and he ran it well. And he
Yeah.
ran it well, and that's a good example for a lot of believers, especially those young Moriel guys and coming on, and people that follow Moriel for not that long. Didn't see Dave a lot. Didn't Dave wasn't at the forefront as he used to be. He laid a good foundation for all of us to do.
Yeah.
Helped Jacob out and David out a lot. He helped out tremendously with mission. So much to say. We got to get on with it. Please pray for the royal family. Please pray for Beryl Hunter and Peter Hunter as well, and in their loss today. So may the Lord be with them, and may the Lord be with you guys, David and Jacob. You guys knew Dave quite well, and better than me. So your loss is a lot harder
Yeah.
on you. So let's talk about some things that are going on. 24 days of the inauguration. Deep state stooge Schumer, along with Biden, whoever that is, because people think he's dead, appointing, and now the number's up to 235 judges that
Wow.
he has appointed. Senate Majority Leader Schumer, right before the holidays, wants to get in up to 235. So they've had appointed a certain amount this last 4 years. They want to bring in the last, and they want to stack up the courts. Jacob, we'll start with you. He is gleaning with hope. He's saying far left judges will thwart Trump during his next 4 years. Your thoughts on that at the last minute, slipping it in? 235 judges total that they will appoint over the next 4 years. They're gleaning. What do you think?
As we anticipated, there will be two forces that are going to try to sabotage the Trump administration in any way they can. One would be the Democrats, obviously, and the other would be the rhinos. And they're both doing it, and they're doing it this week. We've seen like Ketanji Brown, and a woman who basically was soft on pedophilia as a judge, and
Yeah.
she got appointed to the Supreme Court. How does such a thing happen? But that's Biden and his corruption, his senility. You have basically a senile corruptocrat, as we've said. And Schumer is a man with no integrity whatsoever. He's never had any integrity. Um, and so they're trying to saturate the courts with liberal judges. That is what they're trying to do. The one ace in the hole is the appeal process, that if it gets to the Supreme Court, um, there's still a conservative majority, particularly if they can get rid of someone like Roberts, and particularly if Sotomayor retires, who's an incompetent anyway. She
Yeah.
doesn't have the intelligence to be in the Supreme Court. She doesn't have the intelligence to be a judge, really. She's a woman of low intelligence. She's just identity politics appointee. Ketanji Brown similarly. And they hate black conservative Clarence Thomas, who was a man of integrity. That man was born to be a Supreme Court justice. He should be the Chief Justice, in my opinion. But that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. But it also underscores the fact that the Biden administration, instead of it being a lame duck administration fulfilling what it should be, that is an interim caretaker whose primary task is to transition in the new administration. It is simply trying to clutch onto as much power and do as much damage to the incoming administration as it can before it leaves office. This is the corruption of the Democrats. They're using anything they can. The other thing they're using is their narrow majority. I'm sorry, they are trying to capitalize on the narrow majority the Republicans have in the House. This is the second direction of attack. Reagan's former director of the CIA and former director of the FBI, William Weber, who was a deep state rhino
Yeah.
from the Reagan era. And we know the corruption that happened in the deep state in the Reagan era with giving weapons to Iran and all the rest of it. He has come out forcefully denouncing both Tulsi Gabbard and Patel and Kashil Patel.
Oh, the new FBI guy. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the rhinos are attacking. We've already seen it with the budget play out in the House.
Yeah.
You have to go to the Democrats and negotiate with them because of the rhino menace within the party. It's brought into the question, should Johnson remain Chief Justice, Speaker of the House or not? But what is for sure is, historically, the president in power tends to lose the midterm elections in the House and Senate. Donald Trump only has 2 years to push his agenda through, unless it is one of those historical abnormalities where the Democrats will not make gains. He has 2 years to do it. And of course, Schumer is trying to use the judiciary to make sure he can't force that agenda through. This is what they're doing. But it's to be expected. As despicable as I find Schumer personally, and as despicable as I find his actions, even more despicable are the rhinos.
Yep.
They're as much out to sabotage President Trump's second administration as the Democrats are. They'd rather have Democrats than Trump. They're never Trumpers. Their habitat is the swamp.
Yeah.
A swamp inhabited by rats inside the Capitol Beltway. And they are the rats of the swamp. And they want to preserve their habitat and their interest.
Yep, absolutely. David, we'll go with you. Operation Block Trump. It's in full gear now, and so much for a peaceful transition, as Jacob was talking about. The leadership of the Democratic Party on full board to try to get this done, and what they're trying to do is to block him taking office on January 20th, 24 days, and it's led by our favorite friend, ringleader Jamie Raskin, who's been talking about if this happens, we need to block them, electoral college votes. We need to block them on January 6th. We need to block them from taking office. And they keep bringing this 314 up, which is
314,
Section 3. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Can I touch on the Schumer's plan?
I'll come back to that. We'll come back to Schumer. I just wanted to touch. Yeah, we'll come back.
Raskin's plan has to deal with the 14th Amendment and Clause 3, which it was done during the Civil War, where generals who had taken an oath to America then tried to overturn the government by actual insurrection and revolt. And so he's saying that Mr. Trump is guilty of insurrection. Now, it does not matter that he's never been charged with insurrection. He's never shown any proof that he's performed insurrection. It's just they don't like Mr. Trump because he's ideologically aligned as loving America. He wants to have a prosperous America. But Mr. Raskin is a communist, a Marxist communist, and that's his ideology. So that's what he wants. He wants a communist state. So let's overthrow America by saying that this law will fit. Now, what most people don't know is back in March of this year, the Supreme Court ruled nearly unanimously
Nearly unanimous, yeah.
that this did not fit with Mr. Trump. And so they blocked it. But see, that's what they're trying to do with the Schumer's plan and everything, is to throw the whole America into chaos and to overthrow judicial impartiality, the checks and balances of our whole Congress and judicial and presidency, executive. They're trying to undermine everything because they want a single political party to run America.
No, you're absolutely right. And I wanted to ask Jacob, we'll come back to you, David, about Schumer, but I wanted to ask Jacob real quick. They have some bills, they want to introduce these bills. They're ready to go. Blumenthal wants to introduce a bill to take executive power domestically away from the president. That would mean a coup right there for me. They want to indict him on the January 6th stuff, obviously the 14th Amendment, Section 3, and they want Western states like California, Washington, Oregon on the coast to secede and have their own inauguration for Biden or whoever is going to be the next president, right? So they got a plan in place. Jacob, your thoughts, are they going to be successful or are they just going to create
Their West Coast plan is insurrection in itself.
Yeah. It is crazy, but it's true. Blumenthal says we want the power to the executive branch to be curtailed, and they run all these articles on the Hill and other newspapers who says Congress can stop the president. Congress can stop the president. Jacob, your thought, can Congress take away that kind of power from the president?
Constitutionally, no. By perverting the Constitution, they would attempt to. That is how desperate they are.
Yeah.
Don't forget, they're also afraid of criminal prosecutions of themselves for corruption.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're trying to protect themselves from criminal investigation and corruption. People like Milley and people like this. Would they do it? That's why they wanted generals like Milley. That is why they wanted a DEI military.
David, we'll go to you. Schumer is at the head of this, along with Raskins. They would rather burn the place down and stack everything than to let this happen. David, your thoughts on Schumer, and do you think they can be successful?
Well, I hope they can. The way the Constitution is set up is that there's a balance of power between the executive branch, the presidents, and there's the Congress, and then, of course, the judiciary. But because they want a one-party rule, they're installing all these judges, okay, that are driven by ideological demands, political ideology, plus they're not necessarily judicial qualified. And so now you have this whole thing. If you get this going, what's going to happen is you're going to keep shopping judges when you want something done. So you'll have you want something done for liberalism, you go shop this guy and everything, which hurts us. And so what's happened is there's not going to be judicial independence anymore. And people are saying, well, this is a legitimate use of power by Schumer. Okay. But what it's doing is it's dividing America even more and making the polarization of America grow even wider. And so if they can do some of these things, and this is what he's trying to do, it's going to lay a foundation to keep doing this and keep doing this so that you can further politicize the judiciary. But he's facing opposition right now. He is facing opposition. And so what you're going to either see is the judiciary is either going to line up with the Democrats, or we're going to be polarized even more. And then what we're going to have to do to solve this, though, is we're going to have heightened scrutiny of all these judicial appointments. They need to be qualified. They're going to have to know the law. They're going to have to know the Constitution. And it's the only way to kind of stop what Schumer is doing here. And what I would tell people should do is get on X accounts, talk to your representatives, call your senators, call your representatives, and tell them to put a stop to this, because we don't need this and everything. And so, but people should be aware how much the judiciary has increased in my lifetime in power. One of the worst things that happened was overthrowing the right to marry as being between a man and a woman. And when one man, one judge overturned that, it allowed gay marriage throughout the whole United States.
That's right.
A
That's right.
One man,
judge, a Republican
a Republican
homosexual
judge. That's right.
appointed by Bush and nominated by Reagan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to that because plays a big role in what happened in Georgia with those those two well, I can't say
Oh
it.
yeah, the
two
two guys, yeah,
playing
abusing the kids.
yeah, they were playing marriage and they got abused and they abused the kids. Jacob, before we finish that, I want to ask you, do you think Trump's trolling Trudeau with this promise to make Canada the 51st state? Talk about Greenland and talking about Panama. Let's take one at a time. The Trudeau thing's pretty funny, but there are some Canadians that are absolutely gung-ho. Yes, please. We want to be the 51st state. Our taxes will go down 60%. We'll have freedom of speech, freedom to carry guns. They're begging for it as Trudeau approval rating is probably lower than Starmer. But anyway, we'll start there. Is this a troll? Do you think there's any possibility?
Okay, 35 years ago, I met Canadian businessmen, major Canadian businessmen from the Western provinces who wanted that to happen.
Interesting.
35 years ago. Now, however, it's gained some popular momentum. Do I think it'll happen in the near term? No. But do I think a momentum has been created? It'll be a momentum much like Quebec nationalism. Like Quebec wanting an independent French-speaking Canada. It'll be something like that. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but it will create a political force that will not be able to be ignored in the longer term.
Interesting.
I would see it that way. Concerning Panama, there is a treaty, and Carter, of course, mishandled everything, but what didn't
that was a disaster. Yeah.
What didn't he? Yeah, anything he touched was an abortion. And if it wasn't, he made sure it turned into one. There was a treaty by which the canal was transferred back to Panama. And it gave joint security, military strategic protection and security for the canal jointly to the United States and to Panama. And it said that the United States military vessels in an emergency would have priority over other ships in getting their ships through the canal. Now, management has been given over to Chinese companies.
Yep.
It can be argued that that is a violation of the treaty. It can be. Do I think there are people in Panama who might want the United States to come back and take it over? Probably. Probably are. But Mr. Trump, if he was smart, what he would say is, we're going to give American green cards with the possibility of citizenship to Panamanians.
Man, that would be a deal right there.
That's how he could do it. Now, concerning Greenland,
Yeah.
There's only a few 100,000 people in Greenland. You'd have to have a popular majority of them wanting it. You'd have to have at least a significant majority, maybe 2/3 of the people in Denmark wanting it.
Right. Yeah, because part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Yeah.
Yes, technically. So it's a I don't know how viable of a prospect it is.
All right.
I don't know how viable of a prospect it is, but it's not just strategic. It's the minerals underneath the permafrost.
Plus the
Fascinating.
whole North Atlantic fishing that 200 miles out would belong to the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. So David, we'll go to you. The Canada trolling, funny but
Yeah.
serious. Panama, there's a serious threat of China controlling that area, and Trump brought it out. I wouldn't even bring it up unless he was promoting it. And that's the interesting thing. He
Yeah.
promoted it. It's not just a one-off. He keeps talking about it. He wished everybody Merry Christmas, and he says, Merry Christmas in Panama. We wish he could have it back so the Chinese guys don't get in there.
Yeah.
Greenland, because it's strategic against Russia and China. Canada, because we'll save a lot of money on taxes and to get their guns back and the freedom of speech. Your thoughts, David?
It's all part of art of the deal. He's always negotiating. Like you said, came up it could be, because we need somebody strong in Canada. Trudeau has been a total disaster. So, we're going to throw 25% on you. Well, look, we need Canada too. 36 of our states, that's their biggest trading partner. So we need it, but it's a deal. Look, we want security. So, along our border. So I think they can get somebody in there, and then also we want to help with the XL pipeline to bring natural gas down and other fuels for the economy and to build up Canada. And so, and get rid of Trudeau and get somebody that
Yeah.
like Trump that would be governed with
Yeah.
with
Mr.
with
Pouvier
brains and
is a
getting rid of their
yes.
they've got this forest up there. It's called, I think, called the Boron or Boreal Forest, which absorbs 110% of all the CO2 that Canada puts out. But Trudeau has put on a carbon tax and is charging these people hundreds of
Terrible.
dollars a month
Yeah.
for polluting. So he's wrecked himself, and the best thing he could do is leave. And I don't think it'll be safe for him to stay in Canada after he has no more protection. He
Perhaps he can
might
go to
want to go maybe to
Cuba.
Cuba and see if any of his dad's family's still around.
Jacob, we'll go back to you.
My one concern is Mr. Trump is not talking to Mr. Pouvier,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
opposition leader.
Yeah.
He's as Mr. Trump is America first, his Canadian counterpart is Canada first, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
The man is intelligent, he's idealistic, he's well spoken, he has views that are compatible largely with Mr. Trump's views on economic issues and things of this nature. And traditional family values and so forth. I mean, he seems to be a positive figure along the lines of Mr. Harper, who was one of Canada's better prime ministers, but unfortunately was defeated by Trudeau, which was a mistake and a disaster for Canada. They got rid of a good man. Be that as it may now, I hear Donald Trump saying that he wants to take some hockey star and make him
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky, yeah.
Most famous Canadian hockey star.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's saying that as a joke, I can understand it. But I would like to see Mr. Trump enter into some serious dialogue with Mr. Pouvier
Yeah.
and with Mr. and Nigel Farage,
In the UK. Yeah.
and even possibly Miss Le Pen in France, possibly.
Very interesting. Yeah.
On Panama, I do, the enforcement of our concerns caused an invasion under the Reagan administration and invaded because of Noriega.
That was
Went
Bush.
down
That
there,
was Bush.
removed him from power
It
because
was Bush, not Reagan. Bush.
Was that Bush
Bush.
one?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
Bush.
Bush one.
Yeah. True.
Let's talk a little bit about the wars and rumors of wars that are going on. And one strategic thing, it's what happened in Finland and Estonia, not in what happened not
Yes,
above, but underground. The undersea power cables go dark. Jacob, Russia Shadow Fleet was right there. Tanker, they're being investigated. We had the other one a couple of months ago that happened.
yes.
Sweden and Germany. There was a Chinese vessel there. As you know, in war, the first thing you got to cut out is communication. These are not isolated issues. These are not coincidental. That is happening in that area. Your thoughts on that?
It's being done, at least the first time, by anchor dragging. The question is, was it China or was it Russia? That was the question. I don't know. Both of them would have motives. But I do know that ever since Finland joined NATO, that caused the Ukraine invasion to blow up in Mr. Putin's face. He was trying to limit the expansion of NATO towards the east, and he created another 740 or 760 miles of Russian border with the NATO power, which is the last thing he wanted or anticipated. So the hostilities with Finland and Putin have become obvious. And you can't speak about Finland without speaking about Sweden. They will act in harmony with each other. They will act congruously with each other, in tandem. Now, during the Cold War, Finland was Finlandized. It was completely neutral, didn't want to offend the Soviet Union. And Sweden was a left-wing government under Olof Palme that was not friendly towards the United States, and that was not a member of NATO or anything like this. And now it has shifted. It has shifted to the political right, even to the point where Sweden is beginning to stand up to the Muslim invasion. So you've got this trend in Scandinavia. It's also somewhat in Denmark. And it's not something Mr. Putin wants. I think he's saber rattling. I think he's afraid. There was an incident several days ago involving a Russian ship encounter with the Finns. It's beginning to look like what was the Ukraine conflict is now stretching. Kazakhstan, where this plane went down.
Yeah, Christmas. Yeah.
Tensions along the border with Poland. Belarus is being rumored to be pulling away from Putin, which is very troubling for Putin. That was one of his stooge states in his efforts to reassert the ghost of Sovietism. And of course, there is a long-term question, even though it's not talked about very often. People in the intelligence community and the diplomatic community do speak about Kaliningrad, that little piece of Russia surrounded by Lithuania and Poland. Those people would be very, very happy to leave Putin, for sure, and join the West, for sure. Certainly the majority of them, I'm convinced. So what we are seeing is an expansion of the potential line of conflict in the Ukraine war. Hence, this underscores the reasons why Putin has this week said he's willing to negotiate with the Americans concerning the Ukraine. And Putin said that. He just said he wants America to make the first move, whatever that means.
Yeah, they want to go to Slovakia and make a deal there. So he wants to negotiate in Slovakia. So that's going to be interesting. David, I want to go to you real quick. Because you've all these things happening, that Baltic region is becoming just a mess. Jacob's right, the expansion, but we talked about this, that this is not going to stay in Ukraine only. It was going to expand dramatically. But now you have one of the most interesting things that happened over Christmas holidays is you had CBS airing on 60 Minutes interview with Lavrov on Christmas Day. Now, CBS demographic is 63 and over, so wherever we fit on that. Most people my age don't watch CBS because it's nonsense. Most people your age probably do watch it, and I don't know why, but they do. and they aired it on Christmas Day. Lavrov, I didn't even know it happened until afterwards. This is what he said. Some of the things that he said is basically, we're patient, but not eternally patient, right? And we're willing to use nuclear war if necessary. Talked about Putin changing the constitution. Talked about Putin changing the laws about using nuclear strikes if there's a threat. They're not interested in escalating it, but NATO keeps pushing it, so they want to go in that direction if necessary. They talked about Ukrainian drone attacks into Moscow, into Russia. They talked about the deployment of what they call a robot battle force for the first time as a deadly technology that is being used by Ukraine. Probably, I'm not saying the Ukrainians didn't have it first, but they probably didn't, even by the U.S. or NATO or something in that combination. So
Trying it out.
this is in Kharkiv. So there's been some push by Ukraine and NATO to escalate this war. Now Lavrov comes up, and I don't know if anybody watched it, but he says we are ready to go. We won't escalate it, but we're ready to go. Your thoughts on that? Just on the fact alone that it was aired on Christmas Day. I mean, who was watching TV at that time?
Well, it's one of those important things that slides right through the world's doesn't take notice, and he is an important man. And we're seeing within Russia, you have ultra nationalist soldiers getting upset within Russia and wanting to push forward an agenda to make sure their country stays their country. And we're seeing other rumblings of Biden possibly taking the $50 billion of assets from Russia. They're frozen and they can't get at them. But if they take them,
forget it.
This would be enough to set off fury, and leave Trump with a real mess.
That would be a mess.
It's like these people just don't care. Our government has become provocateurs, and they're playing a deadly game of chess, only with militaries and with weapons that can destroy things that are even beyond description anymore. So it's a dangerous game.
Yeah,
and perilous times, as Paul says.
Here in our
Something else that factors into the equation. Again, some people take notice of it, but the majority probably do not.
Right.
Or if they do, not to the degree it should be. Russia's exports are oil, natural gas, which have been curbed, obviously, due to the embargoes, although they're still doing it. And, of course, gold bullion. Okay, there's that. In terms of manufactured products, the biggest export Russia has been weapons. And because of the malperformance of the Russian forces in the Ukraine conflict, the market for purchasing Russian weapons, including the S-3s and S-4 anti-aircraft missile systems, has plummeted. They're really being hurt in terms of the viability of their arms export sales because Russian hardware is just not performing that well against Western hardware. Now, during the Cold War, and I remember I was there, when Israeli Air Force pilots, usually at that time flying F-15s, and earlier even Phantoms, but up to the age of the F-15s, when they would engage the Syrian Air Force flying Russian MiGs, even MiG-23s, or perhaps in some occasions MiG-25s, I'm not sure, what would happen is the Israeli planes would land, and McDonnell Douglas had this big facility at Herzliya, north of Tel Aviv. And you had all these retired American Air Force colonels who were executives with McDonnell Douglas. And you had these avionics engineers with McDonnell Douglas, and they would go debrief the Israeli pilots after the dogfights with the Russian manufactured MiGs flown by the Syrians. Every time there was a dogfight over Lebanon, it would happen. So the United States was using Israel as a R&D lab and as a laboratory environment to improve its weapon systems and their performance capacity against Soviet hardware, as it was then. That has now shifted to the Ukraine. The United States, Great Britain, France, they are using the Ukraine as a weapons lab to test their hardware against Russian hardware. This is badly damaged Russian arms exports. Remember, apart from natural resources, which are also being hurt, not so much the gold bullion, but certainly the oil and natural gas. The biggest Russian export was armament. Who wants to buy electronics from Russia? You don't buy electronics from Russia. You know, who wants to buy computers from Russia? You know, you buy computers from Silicon Valley and you buy automobiles, from Germany, and you buy, consumer electronics from Japan or South Korea. You don't buy that stuff from Russia. What do they really have? Nothing but weapons. And the basement has gone out of their arms market. The floor has fell out of it because of the Ukraine.
Jacob, does that make him a more dangerous enemy, though?
Makes them more desperate.
Desperate.
Yeah. And if they want peace, why not deal with it? I mean, NATO just doesn't want peace. If he's asking for peace and you want to blow up the whole world, I mean, go and negotiate with this stuff rather than just keep. I mean, what did they send? An old robot army? They deployed an old robot army in Kharkiv. I mean, what else does Ukraine want to do? They want to burn the place down.
Well, something else you have to understand, because it's a weapons lab. It's the United States way of scaring China.
Yeah, it's tremendous cost, though. There's a tremendous.
We can outperform you technologically in a battlefield, in a high-tech battlefield. We can outperform you.
Yeah, China just flew that sixth generation jet that they had.
Yes.
It scared a lot of people, but I think the U.S. has something bigger than that.
Yes.
But back to the point of peace. Why not? He wants to meet Slovakia. You got almost 1 million people that have died, both Ukrainian and Russians. God knows what could happen next. Lavrov talks about it on Christmas Day, like, yeah, we're going to use nuclear weapons. I wouldn't call it a bluff, but if a man has nuclear weapons and he's Russian, he might just use them. But
you cannot dismiss as a bon mot or as a joke anybody who has nuclear weapons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if they're a maniac, even if they're an idiot, like Kim Jong-un in North Korea, even if they're a moron, they have that, you've got to take them seriously.
And if they are moronic in that way, they would probably be more dangerous because they probably wouldn't care.
Of course.
Yeah. So it was interesting that it was aired on Christmas. And you brought up Germany. Jacob, I want to talk about Germany real quick because last week you had that terrible massacre in Magdeburg. And now we know it was a Saudi that was accused
a physician.
Yeah, but he fled Saudi,
Yes.
accused of rape, went into Germany, got into the hospitals. He was a refugee, got the citizenship and all that. He threatened Germans not too long ago. They knew he was. They knew who he was. They knew he was threatening Germans, and he played the card, seemingly, that he was this sort of Westerner, rehabbed ex-Muslim, atheist type. And he goes and he literally threatens Germans and goes right into a marketplace, Christmas marketplace, kills 5 people, a young child, 9 years old. But yet the response of the German government is like, well, we kind of knew it was here, but we want to bring more migrants in. And this is the current government.
Yep.
The elections are coming up again. But just talk about that. Germany is suicidal. The government is completely suicidal. They see it, and yet almost like nothing happens. You just go back
What they do is, of course, they brandish anybody who opposes these immigration policies as being neo-Nazi. And they use the fear of Germany's history and recollections of the Holocaust and the Blitz, and they'll play that card.
Yeah,
So,
play the guilt.
yes, and that's what they're doing.
Man,
The AFD, that's what they're doing.
yeah. David, they're targeting journalists. So journalists that reported on this had to flee Germany because they're going after them because they posted it on X. They talked about it on X. Now they're saying these journalists are dangerous. They're Elon Musk's tentacles or whatever they call them now to
Yes.
come to America. And they're going after because I didn't know this in Germany, but it wouldn't surprise me. But if you post a meme making fun of a politician, they can come and arrest you for that. If you wrote a bad article, like I thought the Berlin Wall fell in 1991 and East Germany was done. David, it's back again.
A
You
Hun
know,
is a Hun is a Hun. The Huns are back. They're inviting Islam in to make their nation Islam. I remember 15 years ago talking to a Muslim and a German guy, young guys, and I told them that they're being invaded 15 years ago. And I told they were in the Philippines on vacation, and I was telling them what was going to happen, and it's now happened. And so the truth has become misinformation is what's happened here, and they're trying to control all media and control not only just the way people speak, but also they're trying to make sure that all truth is only their truth. And unfortunately, you make fun of people in power, they have the ability to terminate you. But I know that some are being brought over here to America by Elon Musk and used on X,
Yeah.
which fortunately they don't have too much power because he can transmit uh, X via Starlink. So
yes.
this is a little bit out of the control of the world powers
No wonder
because
they're so angry. No wonder they're
yeah,
angry.
What's
because
happening in Germany? Don't forget, it's happening in Great Britain.
yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna
Police
get
are knocking on people's doors for posting things
yeah.
that you would say are freedom of speech. And you have a Gestapoized British police and the Gardaí in the Republic of Ireland. Again,
Mm.
it is a Gestapoized police force by a government intent on betraying its own country and its own citizens to radical Islamic interests. Who was
yep,
in back of this? It was the globalists, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been doing this, Germans playing this since the day of the I think their party's called the CDU. That was
Yep.
Merkel's old party.
yeah.
Been doing this. Davey, we'll go to you real quick. You want to make a comment?
Yeah, I was just thinking, that whole thing, with banning the memes, that you'll be put in jail, imprisoned if you make a, a caricature or a meme of a politician. Elbo's been trying to pass that here too, but you look at most of these politicians, they're self-caricatures anyhow. It's kind of like they don't really need the memes. They're
Yep.
parodies of themselves anyhow. They're walking jokes. It's kind of like look at Trudeau, Macron. They've all got their questionable wives. I'll leave it at that. But they're walking parodies themselves. It's kind of like they are walking jokes. They deserve to be mimicked and parodied anyhow. But I mean, we don't need to do it really because they do it themselves.
But
In the
we're
German
facing the
election,
same type of thing here. We're having politicians like Dan Crenshaw threatening to sue Cat Turd
oh, on Twitter.
because he
Yeah.
makes memes of him. Because he posts actual government records
Facts.
concerning Dan Crenshaw. So he's going to sue him and he's going to, so this is coming everywhere. And, X is really bothering politicians.
Yeah,
It
I'm going.
really is that, gee, the everyday man has a voice. And when 1 million of us petition you and make nice, funny things about you, it really bothers politicians. The Republicans called people on X bullies, because we were writing their offices.
Yeah.
I wrote my congressman and she answered. Luckily she's a pretty smart woman, so she and
Amen.
so this is getting under their skins, and they're deathly afraid of
Absolutely.
freedom.
Yeah.
These
Don't
people,
yeah.
Absolutely.
these
Yeah.
people are
Don't.
narcissists. They love themselves. They love the preeminence. They just love the glory and all the rest of it. But all you've got to do is take clips of them and post it, and it's kind of like you don't
Yeah.
have to change them. It's kind of like they're
Yeah.
That's great.
unbelievable.
That's
There
right.
was also an attack in Norway, not just in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
attack in Norway, again, it's Obadiah 15, it's Genesis 12:3.
Yeah.
I'm
Jacob, I
I'm
wanted to
wondering if
ask
we
you
should
about
If
talk.
I
the.
if I could make
Well,
a comment real quick,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd just like to say, we shouldn't be surprised that politicians aren't allowing any type of contempt of them. This is just a moving forward of the agenda of the Antichrist. You won't
Yeah.
be able to make fun of him. You will
Yep.
not be able to criticize him. You will not be able to question his authority. As the same with Caesar Augustus, as the same with Tiberius. You didn't openly comment on what they did. Look at the reign
Yeah.
of Caligula. The insane things, making his horse a senator.
A
You
God.
could not,
Yeah.
you couldn't comment on those things. And if you did, well, you disappeared.
Yeah.
That's where we're heading.
We could
That's
That's
become
wrong.
we could become
Although
very
I think it,
creative with editing because it's kind of like if you notice most of these people they contradict themselves anyhow. You can take a clip of them saying one thing one day, then contradicting themselves the next day. You could actually put a clip together where they're arguing with themselves, guilty
Davey,
Yeah.
you
of
could,
highlighting
but
their
they
own
would
crimes.
immediately say that you used
you know,
AI.
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. Yeah,
One
that's
thing I
true.
wonder about the Antichrist is I think he's going to be greatly admired. It says in Daniel that everything he does, he'll be successful at. We don't like our politicians because they're not successful, and they're idiots. But this guy's going to know the wisdom and the riddles of the wise. And I mean, people will start saying, "Hey, we've got the right guy here." I'm just kind of wondering if people will want to even say anything wrong about him. They'll be so enthralled by him.
Yeah.
That's just a personal opinion.
No worries, no worries. I want to ask Jacob something real quick because first we want to finish with Germany because I want to jump over to Ofcom in the UK and what they're doing to enforce some of the verifications that they want to do through AI and facial recognition. Jacob, before we finish with Germany, there was the CDU, which is Merkel's old party. They hold the lead. There's sort of several rounds of election, but the AfD, which is right the second one now, the
yes.
second largest party, the most popular party in Germany, you can argue. And the CDU came out and said, "Look, we even if we, if we win, which they think they're going to win, we won't form a coalition with the AfD. We won't form a
AFD.
coalition with them. We'll form a coalition with the Greens. We'll form a
What?
coalition with the communists. We'll form a coalition with the left, but not with AfD.
That's
This
right.
leaves Germany with no voice. I mean, young people that see the populism of AfD, which it's more populism than conservatism. But what does Germany have left? They've been invaded by the Islamic immigration. You got the left and the Marxists, which wanted to seemingly destroy Germany. The people have no voice. Even if they vote, they won't form a coalition."
Merkel is the German equivalent of an American rhino.
Yeah,
Okay. Same thing like George Bush.
yeah,
Sell the country down the river to the Saudi Arabians. You know, America be damned, Saudi Arabia be exalted.
yeah.
A Bush. That's all she was as a German Bush. She's not a conservative, and Bush was not a conservative.
He wasn't either.
And Merkel's the same. She's not a
Yeah,
conservative. There have been these coalition governments where the so-called Christian Democrats have made coalitions with the Greens, and you had a Green Party foreign minister, somebody ultra left in what's supposed to be a right center government. It's absurd, but they'd rather that.
yes.
Well, it's like the rhinos. They would rather
Burn the country then. Yeah,
a Democrat than a conservative or libertarian. Same
yeah.
thing. No
Jake,
different.
Jacob, your thoughts on the regulation of basically online platforms? This is the age verification platform, the Online Safety Act by Starmer. They got facial recognition. They want to basically take away and block millions of minors to getting on the internet. Basically, that's really what young kids do nowadays. They go to the social platforms. They're going to use AI to assess, to check liveness. So basically, no bots. And these tech companies, if they violate that, there will be about 10% of their global sales revenue will be charged. So I don't think a lot of social media platforms are going to mess with the UK in terms of freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And Starmer, which is already threatened local elections to be postponed to 2026,
Yes, yes.
now wants to keep any donation from Musk and other outside influence into the Reform Party. There'll be no donations
Yes.
in Reform Party. So your thoughts on all of that, sort of a loaded question, but what do you
Because
think?
again, it's the same thing. Kemi Badenoch, who I pretty much liked, as well as Suella Braverman, are now at odds
Mm.
with Nigel Farage
Oh,
because Nigel Farage's party is bigger now than the Conservative Party.
that's right. That's right.
And she's denying it. She's saying they're fudging the statistics, and they have a website that automatically ticks up beyond the realities of the people who are members of his party. So now you have the same thing. The rhinos in America have their equivalents in Germany and in Great Britain, and they're all playing the same game. They are all playing the same game. They're afraid. They're afraid of Farage. They're afraid of Trump. They're afraid of Geert Wilders. They're afraid. They're afraid of Le Pen's daughter. They're afraid. They're even afraid of Meloni to a degree in Italy.
Yeah,
To a
that's
degree.
right.
To a degree. They're afraid. Obviously, they know they're in trouble and they're doing anything they can. That includes the elimination of free speech. That's what they've got to try to stop. But notice what Starmer is doing. He's using legitimate concerns, such as child pornography,
Yeah.
or things like this, or cyber stalking of a sexual nature and things like this. He's using legitimate concerns in order to bring in this legislation. So if people oppose it, they'll be saying, well, you're in favor of child pornography, or
That's
you're
right.
in favor of human.
They will paint you as the evil one if you oppose this. And so this is coming very quickly, Jacob, to the point where I don't know what it's going to look like, but as of January, for I think it's the first week of January, this is what England and the UK is going to look like. There's going to be very little social platforms that we're going to have any minors, and if they do have any minors, there will be the company's going to be sued, or I'm sorry, penalized, and it's going to be checked by AI. So we already in a regulated AI network where AI basically determines freedom of speech or no freedom of speech. And there's not a whole lot you can do except what David said about maybe going to Starlink, which is another problem for the UK
Yes.
government, is Elon Musk.
What we're also not seeing is the kind of riots we've seen in Seattle and in Portland during the first Trump administration.
Right.
This idea that there was going to be an explosion of urban violence in cities and blue states after the George Floyd fiasco and so forth. None of that has happened. None of that has happened. The fact that it's not happened also has the political left troubled.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you guys this about quantum computing, and I know we're going to be talking about it throughout the
Yes.
year. So we expect more of this because we're just going to touch the very tip of the iceberg regarding not only the quantum computing that Google has unveiled the chips called Willow, which is quantum computing, tapping into all these. Even the physicists are talking about the fact that this is going to be a very controversial and disputed thing in terms of quantum computing, what it's able to do. What we do know is that it's going to create a whole new world on the internet in terms of encryption, breaking encryption, password safety, security, surveillance, basically keeping people from being impersonating other people online. And Jacob, what it's going to lead to, and according to physicist Ethan Siegel, it's going to lead to a world where you're going to have to prove who you are online because it'll be very easy to mimic, and so you're going to have some encryption. And this is the worst part. It will create perhaps DNA encryption DNA encryption that is you're going to have to prove to the computer that you're interacting that you are a human and that's who you are. And the only way to do it, besides biometrics at this point, which can be easily broken by quantum computing, I guess you could say that as of now, it's going to be some kind of DNA carbon mix with some chip in order for you to verify who you are. It's a tip of the iceberg, or the very tip of the iceberg. We're going to get into it more as the year goes on. But Jacob, it's going to literally the next 10 years, quantum computer is going to dominate the headlines and is going to change security and passwords and all that. Your thoughts?
I have warned on at least two occasions that the combination of quantum computing and artificial intelligence is going to be as socially transforming and as radical as the laptop and personal computer has been. The changes brought to society by iPhones and PCs and laptops have been absolutely incredible in the last 30 years or so. That is nothing like the transformations that are going to take place with the convergence of AI and quantum computing. Nothing. It'll become possible. As I said over 30 years ago in Belfast, Northern Ireland, I said this, where a virtual world will become functionally indistinguishable from the real one in the perception of people. They'll try to construct their own reality and live in it. When you do that, they won't care what's happening in the real world because they have an escapism into their own world. Just think about a junkie shooting heroin. When a junkie shoots heroin, well, I've never been a junkie, but I've certainly been drug addicted. But I know junkies, they'll tell you, it's like going back into your mother's womb. They don't care. You know what? You make your own reality. You escape into this other world with heroin. Well, you're going to have cyber heroin. It's going to be non-narcotic. There's going to be cyber heroin. You're going to make your own reality and just escape from the real one, and you won't care what's happening.
Yeah, it could tap into your dopamine, and you go in there, and it's just a pleasure, and then you're going to be in there like an addict, like a gambler, like somebody who's just in there. They lose perspective and reality. David, your thoughts on this? Because this is groundbreaking. To Jacob's point, Google revealed that it can actually get you into a parallel universe. Which, remember, we were talking about the multiverse and the metaverse and all that stuff. So I guess this will be a gaming paradise, but it actually pushes the boundaries of what is possible computational at this point.
What we're doing is we're reaching this place that pantheism teaches, where there is no good nor evil nor right nor wrong, a world where you enter and everything is like that. So no matter what you do, you're okay. Now, Jacob called junkies, saying that it's like going in the mother's womb. It's just you reach a state like that where everything is okay. Everything's good, You're sitting in your living room, all the lights are out, and you've got no electricity, nothing in the refrigerator, but you just shot up. Everything's okay, it's like that. And so if this stuff is able to turn all those switches off and transport you to this nether world, an altered state of consciousness, wow, people won't want to come out. They have problems, they can just forget them by going into this world. Then you get them on welfare, man, they're hooked forever.
Yeah, they're pretty much going to be part of society, non-functional society, where you just basically have them like a prisoner. You just be a prisoner in
They
your
won't
own
want to
house.
leave.
Happily,
Yeah.
absolutely. We got two more subjects real quick. I just want to make sure we get to the last part about Israel, but the war on children. David, we'll start with you. The least vulnerable in our society have been the people have been at war. Governments have been at war. Evil people have been at war against them, not only with abortion, but the mutilation. Society as a whole has gone into, the transsexual movement, homosexuality. Look what is happening. A gay couple just sentenced 100 years in prison, Georgia.
One,
Yeah, each one for raping their adopted children, adopted sons that they have. And this is 10 and 12-year-olds. They were absolutely the most horrific things you could imagine. They pimped them out to a sex ring of other homosexuals. It's in the document that I forget what county they were in, but in Georgia, they not only had pornography, they filmed their own pornography, raping the children. It was absolutely horrific stuff that we couldn't even mention here. But this was part of the adoption agencies. They actually adopted them from a Christian agency, not blaming the Christian agency, but they were forced to do so under the Obama administration. All God's Children, which is no longer functioning. They took them. Now they're absolutely horrific things that have happened 100 years each. But this is part and parcel because if there was a sex ring, what happened to the other people that abused his children? David, we'll start with that, then we'll get into the Mayorkas thing in a minute.
They get off the hook. They're not prosecuting these people here. Beyond that, I mean, it's just so unspeakable that we're allowing it, but we're allowing sex trafficking. Our border czar, our current border czar, says, look, it's not my fault. It's not my responsibility that these kids come across and we have to give them to this other department, and then it's their job. So we have 300 to 400,000 missing children. And the ones that we do know about, we're not hooking them up with their DNA tested parentage or family. We're just handing them over to people we don't know, and they're disappearing. This is the worst treatment that you can have, hundreds of thousands. Mr. Horman, the one that's going to be coming in, he said he's tired of burying children.
Yeah, can I play this real quick,
wants
David?
to put a stop to this. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Can I play this real quick just so we
Sure, absolutely.
You're talking about just some background. Mayorkas on Face the Nation just last week.
ICE was also unable to account for more than 32,000 unaccompanied kids who failed to appear in court from 2019 to 2023, according to the report we read. The incoming border czar, Tom Homan, says these children are being exploited and trafficked. Is that true?
Well, we certainly, Margaret, we certainly have received reports of children being trafficked, even those as to whom we know where they are. That is outside the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security. Mm-hmm. What we do is we turn children over within 72 hours, as the law requires, to the Department of Health and Human Services, and then HHS places those children. Of course, we investigate cases of trafficking, but there are children who are reunited with a parent here in the United States or a legal guardian, and they move. And sometimes the government loses track. Individuals do not comply with their reporting obligations or otherwise. I think it is inaccurate to say that all of them are trafficked or victimized. There are a number of reasons why we might lose track of an individual. That is not necessarily specific to this administration. That has been a long-standing challenge in the immigration system. One example of why that system is so broken, why the duration of time in proceedings is unacceptable.
Yep. You know, Marco,
that was
back during this time,
1996.
It got froze.
Yeah, anyway, David, go to you.
One of the first things that Biden did that kind of flew under the radar was to make sure that the DNA testing that Trump was using to make sure these kids were protected, they turned off. They said, we're not going to do it no more. So they purposely destroyed everything. They don't know if that's their parent. They don't know if that's their guardian. You got kids coming across with a phone number and they call that person, oh, I'll be right on down to pick them up. And then they hand them over. Which could be, that note could have been written by a trafficker on the south side of the border, come over here and picked up with coyotes over here.
Oftentimes it does. David, he claims that it's not his job to investigate.
Yeah. He's the head of the whole Homeland Security, not just ICE.
He admits that there are trafficking. He knows about it, but he won't investigate. It's not his job to investigate smuggled children into America. Jacob, this is insane. This guy should be in prison, and if he doesn't repent, in hell.
Of course he should. Yeah. But so should Harris. She was the czar.
Yeah.
Can somebody arrest this guy? Arrest them all.
I hope people understand what I'm saying. In the political realm and in the realm of government, a disproportionately large amount of the voices for the most ideologically positive, the most commonsensical, and the most patriotic, not all of them, but a disproportionately large amount. I speak of Michael Savage, of Ben Shapiro, of Mark Levin. I speak of Dennis Prager, and so forth, even to a degree, Dave Rubin, are Jewish. There are few things better than a conservative Jew in the political realm or the realm of government. There are few things worse than a left-wing Jew. Schumer, Wasserman Schultz, Mayorkas,
Mayorkas.
Mayorkas, obviously Adam Schiff, Shifty Shift, obviously Raskin. These are horrible, horrible people. It is interesting to me that a disproportionately large amount of the most positive voices are Jewish, and a disproportionately large amount of the most nationally destructive voices are Jewish. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yep.
He ended the DNA testing on the first day,
Of
largely
course.
unreported, but the first day it is and by many experts, Jacob, it is the most effective, affordable, and efficient. I mean, it's like you can get it within less than a day. You know exactly who if those are the parents or not. And those kids are signed up if they come into the country for welfare. The young ones will go on welfare. The older ones, even reported by the New York Times, by the way, go into slave labor and the girls go into prostitution. This is the normal course of children. And that Mayorkas is, we have no idea. That's not our domain. That's not my
Yep.
job. Where are the children? Remember the whole thing with the Kamala? Where
Yep.
are the children, Kamala? It should be gone all over the nation, but very few people know about this.
Sobering statistic, 460,000 children will be reported missing every year. That means for the Biden administration, almost 2 million children have gone missing, and that's American children. We're
Yeah.
not even adding in the
Ukraine.
several 100,000 Ukrainian, uh, all the immigrants on the border. These are children that have gone missing and have most likely been trafficked.
Hmm.
Largest trafficking ring in the world, United States of America.
Absolutely. And that's been reported even to Congress. There's been
Yep.
congressional hearings about this, but yet nothing is done by the current administration, but even the Republicans are very slow at it.
Yep.
The only ones, David Lister, will go to you. Trump pledges to stop all this and to stop the transgender lunacy, quote unquote, to stop the trafficking. And got Tom Homan in there, who's tired of burying children by his own account. And in the GOP platform says, this is it. We're going to stop this transgender stuff. I hope he comes through with it.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world, David, is panicking that Trump is pledging to end all this. They're panicking. This is protests in Denmark. There's protests all over the place in Europe, especially in the States. But global trends is Trump is going to kill trans kids. That's really the
Yeah,
headline.
that's what
Going
they're
to kill
saying.
trans kids. Yeah. So unpack all that real quick for us.
Basically, all of this is a depopulation ideology. They want to stop children. Let's kill them inside the womb. Let's kill them when they come out of the womb. Let's torture them. Let's exploit them. Let's create such a cost throughout the world and countries that kids cannot have any hope or any desire. Futures can't buy houses. Let's just kill them all. It's like the God of this world is ruling these people's minds. They have no love of life. They love death. And this is worldwide. And
Yeah.
it's
It is-
depopulation. Kill the kids. Give
yeah.
them no hope.
Jacob, while they're trying to destroy kids here in Moriel and other churches and ministries like ours, trying to help kids and save them, not only what Dave Royal did in South Africa by the grace of God, but also in India and also in the Philippines. This is the real work of saving children. Why? Because God loves them and they're so precious to the Lord. Here are these evil people that rather do nothing
Sure.
more than destroy them.
What you say, they're evil people, but let's look at the spirit and back of it.
Yep.
It's related to abortion.
Yep.
100%.
It's,
100%.
it's the spiritual power and back of it. It's the same demonic murdering spirit of abortion, of non-therapeutic abortion. Same spirit.
So you take a baby, you kill the baby in the womb, you
That's
take
right.
it when it's born, now you kill the child outside the womb.
Yep. You know,
It-
Marco, I used to say if people or a nation allow the destruction of the most innocent, old people have no hope because they'll
Mhm.
kill old people. They'll kill anybody and anything that they dislike.
One,
Yeah.
one thing too with both the abortion industry and the sex trafficking industry too. Don't forget it's all about money. The abortion
Yep.
industry is all about selling them for selling, aborted
Body
babies,
parts.
body parts, and all the rest of it too. So it comes down to the money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what's, I keep coming back to this. You have a brother like Dave Royal fighting with his wife to save the lives of Black children,
Yep.
dedicated their own lives to saving the lives of Black children. And you've got Black politicians like Barack Obama and Kamala Harris advocating for abortion when 7 out of 10 abortion mills are in and around Afro-American neighborhoods. So you've got these liberal Democrat Blacks who are trying to kill Black children, and you've got these white missionaries trying to save the lives of Black children, and the left calls the pro-life Christians racists.
Yep.
That is how twisted it is.
Yeah. It's the
Now,
God
of course, in fairness, there are absolutely pro-life Black people. I'm not saying that all
Oh, for
Black
sure.
people are pro.
Oh, for sure.
I know
Yeah.
Black Christians who are as
Oh,
opposed to abortion as I am.
but you know, Jacob, when we had one orphanage and we were wanting to open up another one down there in South Africa, and so they kept the Black ANC kept making us jump through hoops and
Yep.
hoops and another paper, another
Yep.
form, another
Yep.
requirement, another this, another
Yep.
that, and we would ask, we'll take 50 kids. We don't want no money from you. We just give us the kids. And we went on and year after year. And so we were stuck on the few we had. And so finally, you know, we wanted to have kids from birth to 6 because after they get institutionalized 7, 8, they've been abused and they bring that abuse into the thing. So we wanted kids up to that 6-year-old. And what happened is after 7 years of fighting them to take kids, we didn't want anything from them. We were going to give them medical, whatever. And they said, "Oh, you've been approved." So we got it, and they only wanted us to take kids 7 to 14. So that's when we picked up and we had to go down to the Cape, where
Right.
at least down there they were the government there was much better at giving us a hand.
Yeah. And so the God of this world,
Their own people, they hated their
Yeah.
own people,
it's their own people. The God of
their
this
own
world will
kids.
blind them. They will blind them. And of course, think about the work that you guys have done over the years to save children, and look at the destruction that even sponsored government attack on children, and
Yep.
the sex ring that they had with the in Georgia. Where are the other ones? Where are the other ones? The one that really were in part of that trafficking. They're not
Yeah.
gonna. They only got the
No
two
mass
guys.
arrest of
No,
100, 200
nothing,
people.
nothing,
No,
nothing. I want to finish with the Israel and Hanukkah in the Temple Mount. Jacob, we'll start with you. The Houthis in Yemen are growing bolder, but by the day, it just seems like they continue to want to self-destruct. They're an Iranian proxy, of course. Fifth time they fired a ballistic missile into Israel near the Tel Aviv Ben Gurion airport. Obviously, was intercepted, but it did cause a little bit of damage. But in Yemen, the ADF, that's not the ADF, sorry, the Israeli force, the
idea.
I have.
IDF, they responded back. And they literally, I mean, Sana'a is just absolutely on fire right now. And they destroyed a lot of their infrastructure and about 15 different targets. Benjamin Netanyahu pledges that they're going to keep doing it until they like
Yes.
Hamas and Hezbollah, they're ineffective and they can't respond. While at the same time, the Houthis came back and said, well, we're going to keep fighting. This is the third tentacle of the Iranian regime, not only Hamas, Hezbollah, there's many other ones,
Yeah.
but this is Houthis who seem to be the most active. Jacob, do they pose any threat? I mean, they seem to be launching these ballistic missiles and they get through sometimes, and but the Houthis are vowing to continue to attack Israel.
Okay, because of the distance from Israel, Yemen is not as convenient a target as Syria. It's a further target.
Right.
Our American planes in the Horn of Africa and on aircraft carriers that can hit Yemen more easily than the Israelis.
Relatively easy, yeah.
60 Israeli fighter planes, 60, mainly F-35s, flew down from the air bases in the Negev over Eilat, down the Gulf of Aqaba, down the Dead Sea, past Saudi Arabia, and hit Yemen.
Yep.
Now, that is a pretty long range airstrikes, a series of airstrikes. There are two other factors that come into play here that are not being spoken of too much by the media. One is some of the missiles being fired from Yemen are being downed not by the Israelis, but by the United States. There are American anti-ballistic missiles based in Israel that are interacting with the Israelis. The Americans are shooting down some of these missiles over Israel, although the Iron Dome is obviously taking down the majority of them.
Right.
The third factor is that the Saudi Arabians, who've killed 400,000 people in Yemen, are beginning to capitalize on the Israeli airstrikes and the American and British airstrikes on Yemen and have resumed their own attacks on Yemen. Yemen is being pounded.
Yeah.
And it's really going to be pounded. It is the last stronghold of Iran at the moment. Iran is being made ineffective in Syria. It's been made ineffective in Lebanon with Hezbollah, and it's been made ineffective in Gaza with Hamas. The only platform it has left is Yemen. But Yemen has come under intense attack, not only from the NATO countries that are operating in the area, but from the Israelis and now from the Saudi Arabians. The biggest danger that Yemen has always produced is the economic danger to Europe and to Egypt, reducing shipping going through the Suez Canal, forcing ships to take a longer route all the way around the Horn of Africa, which is, of course, extremely damaging to the economy of Egypt. This is the situation. So that is Yemen in a nutshell. Another thing to remember about Yemen, Sanya is its capital, is that most of the people are extremely primitive, not just barbarian, like other radical Muslims, but they're primitive, superstitious, uneducated, very, very primitive, and will believe whatever they're told to believe by their imams and do whatever they're told to do.
Yeah, no, it is a well, it's been almost nearly destroyed. They had that war with Saudi Arabia, and I don't even know
Yes,
how they came out of that. They had children completely destroyed, starved, and
400,000.
oh man. And it is barbaric, Jacob, because they keep fighting. They want to like literally self inflict and suicidal in their thinking. But
But
this is
they have to highlight Israel, saying Israel killed 43,000 Palestinian Arabs, which they
yeah,
did. It's not that
yeah,
many.
yeah,
The Israelis did not target them. It's Hamas used them as human shields and so forth. But they have to play this card over and over and over.
yeah,
Divert attention away from the 700,000 plus killed in Syria by other Arab Muslims,
yeah,
400,000 plus in Yemen killed by other Arab Muslims.
yeah.
So you've got to play up Israel to divert attention away from what the Arab Muslims do to themselves.
Yeah, well, Sinwar said that in some of the stuff that they've uncovered as Sinwar was communicating with other leaders that they needed civilian casualties to be way up,
Yes,
way up.
yes.
They didn't care about their children. They
No,
just
they
needed
don't.
to die so that they can present it to the media that Israel's the
Yes.
evil group. Jacob, the other group was the Palestinian Authority. They're killing each other in Judea, in Samaria, and down in Jenin. They're
Yep.
fighting against Fatah. They're fighting against Hamas, Islamic Jihad. It is an ongoing war. I mean, there's Muslim killing other Muslims. Are they trying to show face, Jacob, to the Western powers that they're more responsible than the other terrorist group, which just sounds funny. One terrorist group is more responsible than the terrorist groups, but are they trying to show face?
They're fighting for power. They know what has existed until now in Lebanon, southern Lebanon at least, and what has existed in Gaza. There's going to be a regime change. They know that that's going to happen. The question is who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Palestinian Authority lost power to Hamas in Gaza and has always been in danger of losing power to Hamas in the West Bank. Although they may not say it, the Palestinian Authority is a beneficiary of the
of the,
destruction of Hamas.
yeah,
But,
yeah,
but who's going to come to power in Syria now? There's a
yeah,
vacuum of Assad
yeah.
gone. Who's going to
Horrible.
come to power in Gaza now? Who's going to come to power in southern Lebanon now?
Yeah,
Whenever there's a vacuum, they'll fight each other.
yeah.
Remember,
It's
it
destructive.
goes back to the book of Genesis.
The sword. Yeah,
Esau's seed will always be divided.
yeah.
Ishmael's seed will always be divided. His sword will be against his brother. That's
Yeah,
Ishmael and Esau. That's the nature of the Arab, unless they come to faith in Christ.
yeah.
They
And so,
don't have a Jew to kill or a Christian to kill. They'll kill each other.
yeah,
I watched photographs yesterday of Arabs rioting in European cities, tearing down Christmas trees.
yeah, yeah. In Europe is the same. They take that same hatred that they have
Yep,
in the Middle East,
that's
they would
all.
exported it to Europe. Jacob, I want to ask you this: the first day of Hanukkah, National Security Minister Itar Ben Gavir goes up there.
Visiting the Temple
Prays.
Mount.
Yeah, he prays up to the Temple
Yep.
Mount. Scandalous, the world says. Scandalous because he went to pray. This is his prayer. His prayer was for, of course, the prayer for safety of the soldiers. He wanted to pray for the victory, that God will give him victory, and he went to pray to release the hostages. None of these prayers are found offensive at all whatsoever, but the world just says this is incredible. I can't believe it's an outrage. He went to the Temple Mount, and all he says, look, this is the first day we celebrate the restoration of the temple after we defeated the Greeks. So to him, it's no big deal. But this plays a bigger part, Jacob. Not only does the prayers of a security minister, but the fact that he calls for freedom of religion, freedom of speech, which includes the Jews going to the Temple Mount. Is it interesting? That is what they consider freedom of speech and freedom of religion now in Israel. Netanyahu said, status quo, we're not going to get into it. Just let it be. Obviously, it's a political move, but your thoughts on it that more and more of these an Aaronic priest goes up there and prays. The Aaronic benediction is said. More and more, obviously, he's a political guy. Rabbis as well as influencers.
He knew he was politically posturing, and there was a symbolic meaning politically in what he was doing.
Correct.
We know it's another step towards Daniel chapter 9, verse 27.
And that's what the Jews want. Freedom of religion, which is going to include at some point an outcry of the people to say
Yes,
this is our freedom
but
of
it will
religion.
end with them making a covenant with death with the Antichrist.
Oh, there's no doubt. This is not leading to the yellow brick road. This leads to the
See,
book of Daniel and the
Look at what you
Antichrist, for
mentioned
sure.
before, the conflict between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. The El Aqsa Brigade, which is the Temple Mount.
Yeah, the Al-Aqsa Brigade. Yeah,
They are at a low ebb in terms of their power because of what's happened in Gaza.
yeah,
So
yes.
there's a vulnerability. Therefore, it's
It's creating a vacuum again.
yes, it's creating a
great.
vacuum. Correct.
David, listen, your thoughts on it as we finish. We got one more question, and it's for everybody. But your question specifically about what's going on in Israel with Itar Ben Gavir going up there and calling for Jews to ask for freedom of speech and freedom of religion because they don't have that because they're not allowed to pray up there?
Well, I've been up there and I prayed quietly. Jacob prayed up there with me. So we were at the Dome of the Spirit, you know. And so, of course, a Jew wants to pray up there because they believe they get closer and closer to the Holy of Holies and where it was when they pray. And so, I mean, they're looking for something, in my opinion. They're looking for something that they don't have yet, and that is they need sacrifices for their sins. They need their Messiah. They're all looking for something if they want this, and but they actually, because of their blindness, they can't see it
Yeah.
and of what they really need.
Amen. Salvation in Jesus. All right, let me finish this. And this is our last episode for 2025. So we've been with you, those who are watching live and watch later, 52 times this year. So praise the Lord for that. He kept us, and we look for another 52 next year. But I wanted to ask you guys, every one of you, what do you see personally as a trend for this coming year in three places? So your best prognostication, you would say, or a trend that you see that's going to happen in 2025 in the world, in Israel, and in the church? So we'll start there. David, listen, we'll start with you. Trends that you see coming into the world, into Israel, into the church that we need to be aware of.
Well, for me personally, I am seeing something of a awakening among people who really love the Lord. They're desiring to be in fellowship. They're finding places. They're moving. They're doing whatever they can to find a place to come if they really love the Lord. Now I know there's a lot of lackadaisical Christians that are lukewarm, but I'm talking about people that are truly desiring to know Jesus and know his thing. They're finding a way to get God's word in their house and to be in fellowship and to obey the command, do not forsake the gathering of yourselves together. So I see that as a trend among people
In the church. Okay.
in the church.
What about in Israel?
Israel, every year they keep trying to sacrifice and build their temple. They're trying to work to get a temple and to find that peace that's going to be a false peace.
So what do you see it as a trend that would continue, right? Is that what you're saying? That
Oh,
that would.
that's going to continue. That temple is coming.
All right. What about in the world?
In the world, the the devil's in charge and looks like he's going to be in charge for a long time, and he's got so many blinded and so many people just actually love error. They hate the truth. That will continue. The violence, the love of money, people without self-control, this is all going to continue.
All right. We'll go to Jay real quick. Jay, specific trends that you see in the world, Israel, in the church for this coming year.
I would go kind of with a double whammy. I think the world is going to try to court Christianity in the way that they're going to be pushing a form of Christianity of a new way of looking at it, a non-scriptural way, a way that is very open and wants to befriend everyone, one that completely abandons interpretation of the Bible that's somewhat true, very open to homosexuality, open to new church leadership, male and female. I just see with the ads and where they're going, and all the different media out there, that Christianity is going to be challenged at its core. So this is a time, if you're a Christian, you need to be in the Word, you need to be studying, and it's not just reading it. You got to be able to know what you believe and why you believe it, because that is going to be challenged by the intelligentsia of the world. They're going to look at a way of making Christianity palatable to the modern theories of DEI, and they're already at work. But I think it's going to really ramp up in the next few years.
All right. What about in Israel?
In Israel, I think you're going to continue to see a lot of people coming to Jesus, and a lot more attacks being thrown at it because of that.
Mm. What about in the world? Anything in trends in the world that you'll see more in 2025?
I think everybody's going to be given that choice. Augmentation by use of chips so that you are more marketable or not.
Hey, that's to be a fashion trend. Davey, we'll go with you. Trends, specific trends you see in the world, Israel, and the church.
Okay. Well, with the world, yeah, I do see the push for more, what do you call it? Censorship, basically. The control of the narrative. They've been doing it, it's really increased in the last several months. They're going to keep pushing that, so we're going to see that being pushed all the more. I'm hoping once Trump takes office, Lord willing, January 20, depending anything could happen yet. But they're going to keep pushing this to control the narrative, to control the internet, the censorship of information, the control of information. So that is going to be the big thing I think we're going to see increase in the world over the next 12 months. Um, Probably with the church. Um, well, we all know the false teachings and all the rest of it. They're getting worse and worse by the day. I think that kind of thing's going to increase. The what do you call it? The main established churches are going to become more and more apostate. But what concerns me more is within the church, within the faithful believers, within the faithful remnant. I look, the enemy likes to attack us from within, and the most devastating attacks actually are the ones that come from within the body. So I do see an increase in those because they're the most demoralizing and the most destabilizing. I think we'll see an increase in them. So look, my appeal to believers is to not let your love grow cold. Realize these things are going to come. Realize these things are going to happen. Stand on the word of God. Don't let your love for the Lord, your love for each other, and the love for the lost to grow cold, because the attacks aim to do that. When it comes to Israel, I do believe we're going to see even more aliyah happen, especially with the rise in anti-Semitism increasing all the time. I can't see I can't see it slowing down any. So I think it's going to become a lot more difficult for, you know, uh, Jews to live in Europe, London, Germany, I'm sad to say, even Australia. Look, the anti-Semitism is going through the roof. So I do see Aliyah increasing, and maybe Trump can factor into this, but I do see Israel becoming more and more isolated on the world scene too. The only ally it's got will be the Trump administration. The rest of the world seems to be turning its back on Israel. So I do kind of see there are probably the trends I sort of see happening.
All right, very good. Jacob, anything specific that we should be watching out for? Trends in the world, in Israel, in the church specifically?
I do not disagree with anything that's been said. However, what I would say in addition is a reiteration of the hot take I did last week. Before the Lord comes, there are birth pangs. Birth pangs come, and then they ease up, and then they come back again. The contractions come back, and they ease up. The last time there was an easing up, the last phase of easing up was when Donald Trump was elected president in 2016 and Brexit took place. That was benevolent for both Christians and for Israel. I think we've arrived at another period of easing up with the election of Donald Trump. I do see this as another period. The ascent potentially of uh, the Reform Party in Great Britain under Nigel Farage, and the fall of Trudeau, that Ardern has gone from New Zealand, that David Andrews has gone at least from Victoria, that some of these left-wing governments, certainly Schultz in Germany, that there is a period of respite happening in the political realm. And there is a period of respite happening that will be beneficial once again, both to Israel and the church. I also see a positive sign in that the Lord has removed Mike Bickle. The Lord has discredited Brian Houston in Australia and Carlin in Hillsong, New York. But now the Lord has also exposed Michael Brown for what he is. I think the Lord is removing false teachers and false prophets from his church, or at least disempowering them from the kind of influence and control that they once had. I think this is a period of respite. The challenge we face is what I said last week. How long will it last? How long will this period of respite last? Remember, when it comes back, when the contractions come back, it'll be with an increased ferocity than it was the last time. The left is so angry, and they're going to be so hostile and so militant. The Muslim world, because of Trump, are going to be so hostile and so militant. They're going to want vengeance. How long will this period of respite last? That depends on us. Will the faithful believers use it evangelistically? And will we pray? Our use of it for the gospel and this discipleship, our use of the period of respite for spreading the gospel and making disciples, and how much we pray, including for those in authority, certainly for the Trump administration, whether you like him or not. How long this period of respite will last depends on us. It's an unknown quantity. But I do think we're entering a period of respite. But we know that a period of respite in birth pangs is only a period of easing up. We know the ferocity will increase again in the future. The question is how long can it be extended at the present time? And that is the challenge we face.
All right, Jacob, you spoke about prayer. One more thing for everyone. Your biggest prayer request, as people are watching and will watch later, that you want the believers to know and those who are watching to know so they can pray for us and pray for the ministry individually, corporately. David Lister, we'll start with you. Your biggest prayer request for this coming year.
Well, my biggest prayer request is that concerning Thailand, we have some ground over there. We need to build a church because we have an area where long neck people, San people, Rawangis are all refugees
Tribal peoples, yes.
and tribal people. And we've got a pastor there, but we've outgrown his house, his living room, and we're spilling out on the lawn. And we need to build a church there. We have the land. Now we need to build a church.
We have a church, but it's more of a chapel, not nearly big enough.
Yeah, yeah. So we need a place that we can hold meetings. He's expanded into the high school. We have a group coming from that, so we need a place to meet and to do training and discipleship and to provide resources for those that are refugees, that are actually outsiders. They get no health care. They get no ability to have a job. They truly are in a limbo, but they have their lives and they're searching for the Lord, and we're having success. But we need to have a place to be, and it's not a lot of money, but we need to build some buildings. And the pastor needs a home because his he's been renting a place, and and he's been very faithful for years.
All
So
right.
if
We'll keep
anyone
that
would
Thailand in
keep that in
prayer.
prayer.
Absolutely. Jay, we'll go with you quickly.
Real quickly, just the projects coming up with Jacob, the film, Why Is This Time Different? It's a lot of things that many hats I have to wear. So forgive me if I'm a little bit selfish, but your prayers for just me being able to deliver everything that needs to be delivered, being able to
Yep.
be used for all the different roles that I need to be used, and the coordination of it, that would be awesome if I could get some prayer on that front.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Davey, what about you?
Okay. Yeah, I guess mine will probably be a little bit similar to Jay. There's a lot of projects we've talked about and that we could possibly have back in the works. So yeah, I guess prayer for those, I know we've talked about getting your prophecy updates back up and going again, Marco, too, but maybe in a different format, that kind of thing. It's the time. It's all that kind of thing. We need a lot of prayer with them. We've got a lot of ideas. We've got a there's more than enough to do. I guess we're limited with time, resources and manpower and that kind of thing. So yeah, your prayers would be appreciated towards those things.
Amen. Praise the Lord. Jacob, we'll finish off with you quickly. Your biggest prayer you want believers to know that they can pray for you, the ministry, etc.
Well, there's so many projects. Obviously, the orphanage expansion is underway in India now, as well as the church brand new, beautiful church that we built in India that we dedicated this year, and now, of course, Thailand. The film project, as Jay mentioned, and also the next book being researched, Born in a Manger, Coming on a Cloud, that'll deal with the timing in Revelation 12 and in the 12th chapter of Daniel, the 1260, 1290, and the 1335. It'll be focused on the return of Jesus very focally. All of those things need prayer. But if I was going to pray, and they all require the Lord's provision, the Lord's wisdom. But if I was going to pray for one thing, the time is short, that the Lord would use Moriel more evangelistically and in the discipleship of young believers. That is the meat of the gospel. That is our basic work, evangelism and discipleship. These other things, I'm all for all of them. I'm involved in most of them. But it's the work of the gospel. That is what I would like the most prayer for. If I could pick one single thing, it would be that.
Amen. Praise both personally and for all those in ministry here at Moriel and affiliated churches. So, God, that's all the time we have for this episode. We're going to backstage. We got questions coming in. Jacob, David, Jay, Davey, thank you so much for catching up. We got more to do, though. We're going to be on backstage, the final one of the year. Final questions. Get them in. Go to Rumble. Sell your shirt. Come back and get Jacob Prash on Rumble, and you will find the answers that you need for your life. No, I'm just kidding. But you'll find some answers for what you've been asking for. God bless you guys. We'll see you in a minute.
Hello, and thank you for watching Moriel TV. There are so many things that are happening at Moriel Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan to India to Africa and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.